The small town of Lambertville, New Jersey, had carried a quiet unease for over a decade. In June of 2005, 12-year-old Clara Thompson vanished from a local park on a late spring afternoon, and her disappearance sent ripples of fear through the community. Parents grew wary of letting their children play outside, and the police launched an exhaustive search that spanned days, then weeks, and ultimately months. Clara's parents, Ellen and Martin Thompson, were consumed by anguish, holding on to hope even as despair gnawed at them. The town had rallied volunteers, combed wooded areas, leafleted neighborhoods, and called in every available law enforcement resource. But Clara remained missing, leaving behind only the faint traces of her small life, her bright smile, and the memory of her laughter echoing across the playground. Initial investigations had yielded frustratingly little. Witness statements were scarce and inconsistent, and there were no definitive leads. Detectives pieced together a timeline of the day Clara disappeared, interviewing her friends, schoolmates, and the few adults who had seen her that afternoon. They meticulously documented every detail: Clara's last movements, the strangers spotted near the park, and even the cars that had been in the vicinity, but all efforts led to dead ends. The case quickly turned cold, and over time, attention shifted elsewhere, leaving Clara's family in a limbo of unanswered questions. Each year that passed deepened the wound. Clara's room remained untouched, her toys and drawings gathering dust as a testament to the life that had been abruptly stolen from her. Despite the stagnation, law enforcement never gave up entirely. Cold case investigators kept a watchful eye on the case, filing reports, revisiting old evidence, and monitoring technological advancements that could one day shed light on what had happened. In the early 2020s, developments in genetic genealogy began to revolutionize cold case investigations, offering a renewed glimmer of hope. Investigators realized that even decades-old cases could potentially be solved by using DNA evidence in combination with ancestry databases. Clara's case was selected for this innovative approach because a partial DNA sample had been preserved from a piece of evidence collected near the park shortly after her disappearance, discarded item that a potential perpetrator might have touched. The breakthrough came quietly, almost imperceptibly. Investigators uploaded the DNA to genealogy databases, tracing distant familial connections and constructing a family tree with painstaking care. What emerged was a thread leading to a man who had lived in Lambertville during the summer of 2005. His name was Henry Caldwell, a 42-year-old local resident with no prior criminal record, whose outward appearance suggested an ordinary life, a steady job, a small home, and polite interactions with neighbors. Yet beneath the surface, Caldwell had meticulously concealed a dark secret for nearly 15 years. The detectives worked in secret, confirming each connection and verifying his history, ensuring that the evidence was irrefutable before making any moves. The town of Lambertville remained unaware that the silence of years was about to be shattered. Caldwell was arrested in the early hours of a grey November morning. Officers approached him quietly, so as not to alert neighbors prematurely, and took him into custody without incident. The revelation stunned the community. People who had known him for years, neighbors who waved and exchanged pleasantries, could not reconcile the man they had seen with the criminal that investigations now suggested. Questions and disbelief ran rampant. How could someone so familiar, so unassuming, have been capable of abducting a child and keeping her disappearance a secret for so long? Psychologists later explained that perpetrators often cultivate a facade of normalcy precisely to evade suspicion. integrating seamlessly into communities while concealing their crimes in plain sight. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that Caldwell had engaged in careful planning and manipulation. Records showed that he had frequent visits to the park and surrounding areas in the months leading up to Clara's disappearance, and forensic analysis linked his DNA to the evidence recovered in 2005. Behavioral experts testified that the combination of location familiarity and the absence of a prior criminal record could have contributed to his ability to evade detection for years. The careful observation and understanding of human behavior by investigators had finally turned the tide, allowing long-hidden truths to surface. Public reaction was intense. The town that had once quietly mourned now grappled with a mixture of relief and horror. Local media covered every detail, emphasizing the genealogy breakthrough and the painstaking work of cold case detectives. Town meetings were held, with parents sharing both gratitude and lingering anxiety, trying to process the realization that a neighbor had been responsible. Psychologists appeared on news segments to explain the subtle patterns of predatory behavior and the importance of vigilance, offering guidance on how communities could protect children while maintaining trust in one another. The blend of relief and shock permeated Lambertville, creating an atmosphere of reflection and cautious optimism. Caldwell's trial further exposed the meticulous investigation and the layers of human psychology involved. Prosecution attorneys presented a compelling narrative that intertwined hard evidence with expert testimony on behavioral patterns, deception, and the subtle cues that can betray long-concealed guilt. Witnesses who had known him were called to testify, some recounting interactions that in hindsight seemed troubling, offhand comments about children, unexplained absences, and moments of tension that had been dismissed at the time. These recollections were analyzed through the lens of criminal psychology, highlighting the patterns of manipulation and control that allowed Caldwell to remain undetected for so long. The courtroom experience was emotionally charged. Clara's parents, Ellen and Martin, gave testimony that conveyed both heartbreak and resilience. They described the years of waiting, the emotional toll, and the persistent hope that she might still be found. Their words were punctuated by silence as photographs and memorabilia of Clara were displayed, a visual reminder of the life cut short and the decades of uncertainty endured. Psychologists explained to the jury how prolonged trauma shapes memory and perception, emphasizing the importance of giving weight to both factual and emotional evidence when understanding a complex case like this. Defense attorneys attempted to discredit the genealogy evidence, arguing that distant familial matches could not definitively link Caldwell to the crime. However, forensic scientists provided detailed explanations of DNA preservation, statistical probability, and the rigorous validation processes used to ensure accuracy. Behavioral experts added context, demonstrating how Caldwell's patterns of avoidance, social interactions, and subtle cues of anxiety during interviews aligned with long-term concealment strategies observed in similar cases. The combination of hard evidence and psychological analysis created a multifaceted portrait of the perpetrator, making it increasingly difficult for the defense to sow reasonable doubt. The climax of the trial arrived as prosecutors presented the full chronology, supported by the DNA match, witness accounts, and behavioral analysis. The evidence painted a picture of premeditation, careful concealment, and manipulation of both the community and investigators. The jury, absorbing the intricacies of forensic science and human behavior, deliberated for several hours before reaching a verdict. When the announcement finally came, the courtroom exhaled collectively. Guilty. the weight of 15 years lifted from Clara's family, who had endured the pain of uncertainty and the frustration of a case that had seemed unsolvable. The aftermath of the trial saw Lambertville reckoning with the psychological impact of the crime. Parents were more vigilant, children were educated on personal safety, and the community engaged in discussions about trust, perception, and behavioral awareness. Clara's story became a teaching moment, demonstrating the power of persistence, innovation, and deep understanding of human psychology in bringing justice to the long-neglected. Cold case investigators were lauded not only for their diligence, but for their foresight in applying emerging genetic technology, showing that even the most seemingly hopeless cases could find resolution with patience, expertise, and careful attention to behavioral patterns. As Caldwell was led away, the town began to process what had transpired. There was a collective sense of relief tempered by lingering sadness, but also a recognition of the extraordinary work that had gone into unmasking a perpetrator who had hidden in plain sight. Lessons about community, vigilance, psychological insight, and the importance of preserving evidence for future breakthroughs became central to local discourse. Clara's memory, once overshadowed by uncertainty, now guided a community toward greater awareness, resilience, and hope. The weeks following Henry Caldwell's arrest were tense, as Lambertville residents struggled to reconcile the man they had seen daily with the dark reality revealed by the investigation. Conversations buzzed in every corner of the town, from coffee shops to the aisles of the local grocery store, each person trying to make sense of the deception that had unfolded. Caldwell's ability to maintain a facade of normalcy for years puzzled many, yet experts explained that this behavior, while disturbing, was a hallmark of individuals who commit prolonged, concealed crimes. They emphasized that predators often blend seamlessly into their communities, relying on ordinary appearances to disarm suspicion while their covert actions remain hidden. Ellen and Martin Thompson faced a renewed emotional onslaught. For years, they had lived with unanswered questions, struggling to piece together fragments of memories and witness statements. And now, after 15 years, the answers were brutally clear, while relief and justice were finally within reach. Grief and anger intertwined, creating a complex emotional landscape that psychologists described as both normal and expected. Processing the trauma of a long cold case requires time, therapy, and community support, they explained. As survivors navigate not only the revelation of truth, but the realization of what could have been prevented, Clara's extended absence and ultimate fate remained a heavy burden. But her family's resilience became a central focus of the story unfolding in Lambertville. Investigators delved further into Caldwell's past, seeking to understand how someone could orchestrate such a crime without detection. They discovered a pattern of subtle manipulation and calculated planning. He had frequented the park under the guise of jogging or walking his dog, noting the comings and goings of families, children, and staff. Surveillance photos from community events, which had seemed mundane at the time, revealed that Caldwell had positioned himself strategically near Clara's usual play areas. Experts in criminal psychology noted that such observation is common among perpetrators who plan abductions, as it allows them to learn routines, anticipate responses, and choose the optimal opportunity for action. Caldwell's apparent integration into the town's social fabric, friendly greetings, casual conversations, and volunteer work masked his predatory intent. As the trial preparations intensified, new revelations emerged. Investigators found subtle connections to other incidents that had previously been dismissed as minor or coincidental. There were reports of missing toys, small thefts in the park, and suspicious interactions with other children, all of which, in hindsight, pointed to a consistent behavioral pattern. Forensic psychologists emphasize the importance of these small clues, noting that human behavior often leaves detectable patterns even when crimes are concealed. This insight became a cornerstone of the prosecution's case, illustrating how Caldwell's actions fit a recognizable psychological profile of someone capable of prolonged deception and concealment. Public interest surged as media coverage detailed both the breakthrough and the psychological analysis. Interviews with investigators highlighted the painstaking work of mapping Caldwell's family tree and cross-referencing distant relatives to narrow down potential suspects. Community members were fascinated and horrified, learning for the first time how genetic genealogy could reach across time and geography to unearth hidden truths. The narrative of science and psychology intertwining to bring justice resonated deeply, offering a sense of awe alongside the sobering reality of human cruelty. Many viewers and readers found themselves reflecting on their own communities, considering how subtle behaviors might go unnoticed, and how vigilance and awareness can help protect the vulnerable. Clara's classmates and friends were also profoundly affected. School counselors organized group sessions to discuss feelings of fear, betrayal, and relief. Children expressed confusion over how someone they might have seen regularly could have committed such a crime. Psychologists explained these discussions, noting that children must process trauma and information in age-appropriate ways to prevent long-term psychological harm. For Clara's peers, the resolution of the case offered closure but also required careful guidance to ensure they could reconcile the crime with their perception of safety. In the world around them, Caldwell's interactions with law enforcement revealed further layers of manipulation. During interviews, he initially maintained a calm, even cooperative demeanor, but subtle inconsistencies in his statements raised suspicion. Behavioral experts observed micro-expressions, shifts in tone, and evasive language that hinted at concealment. These indicators, though easily missed by an untrained eye, provided critical clues that reinforced the DNA evidence. The psychological interplay between investigator and suspect became a silent dialogue, each gesture and word analyzed to extract truth from deception. Investigators explained later that understanding human behavior at this granular level can be the key to unraveling complex cases, particularly those that have remained unsolved for years. As the prosecution prepared its opening statement, they crafted a narrative that would intertwine the scientific, psychological, and human elements of the case. The story began with Clara's disappearance, detailing her life, her routines, and the impact of her absence. It progressed through the early investigation, the challenges of a cold case, and the emergence of genetic genealogy as a breakthrough tool. Expert testimony highlighted the combination of science and psychology, demonstrating how careful observation of behavior, alongside meticulous DNA analysis, had ultimately identified Caldwell as the perpetrator. Each piece of evidence, from familial matches to behavioral inconsistencies, reinforced a narrative of deliberate concealment and ultimate discovery. Community reactions continued to evolve. Families who had lived in Lambertville for generations expressed both shock and gratitude. Shock at the extent of Caldwell's deception and gratitude for the closure provided to Clara's family. Parents became more vigilant, engaging in conversations about safety, risk assessment, and early recognition of concerning behaviors. Public forums were organized, sometimes with participation from law enforcement and psychologists, to educate residents on subtle signs of predatory behavior and the importance of reporting even minor suspicions. Lambertville had changed. The tragedy of Clara's abduction became a catalyst for awareness, vigilance, and community cohesion. Meanwhile, Caldwell's legal team attempted to challenge the genetic evidence, arguing potential errors in DNA matching and claiming alternative explanations for the familial links. Forensic experts presented a detailed account of how DNA had been preserved, analyzed, and statistically verified, emphasizing the rigor of modern techniques. Additionally, behavioral experts testified that Caldwell's actions aligned precisely with patterns observed in long-term concealment cases, reinforcing the prosecution's assertion that he had intentionally and meticulously evaded detection. The court had to weigh both hard science and psychological insight, creating a multidimensional understanding of the crime and the individual responsible. The trial also revealed glimpses into Caldwell's personal life, offering context for the psychological dimensions of the case. Friends and neighbors recounted his interactions, some benign, some subtly troubling. He had been meticulous in managing perceptions, presenting a persona of respectability, reliability, and friendliness. Psychologists explained that this duality, the outwardly ordinary appearance masking dangerous intent, is characteristic of certain types of offenders. Understanding this duality became essential for the jury, providing insight into how Caldwell had remained undetected for years. Despite his proximity to the community and access to the park where Clara had disappeared, as Part 2 of the trial concluded, the town braced for the final phase, the jury's deliberation and the ultimate resolution of a case that had haunted them for nearly 2 decades. The intersection of science, human psychology, and tenacious investigative work had brought clarity, but the emotional weight remained palpable. Families, neighbors, and community members waited in quiet anticipation, reflecting on the resilience required to endure years of uncertainty and the profound impact of finally knowing the truth. Clara's story, once shrouded in mystery, had begun to emerge in full, offering not only closure but also a stark lesson in vigilance, awareness, and the enduring power of dedicated investigation. The day of the verdict arrived with tension, palpable throughout Lambertville. Residents, journalists, and family members gathered outside the courthouse, some holding photographs of Clara, others simply seeking closure after years of uncertainty. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy. Jurors had spent hours examining the evidence, weighing the scientific data against the human testimony, and navigating the psychological nuances presented by both prosecution and defense. For the Thompsons, the moment was intensely personal. Every question, every piece of testimony had reminded them of the loss they had endured and the enduring emptiness left by Clara's absence. Their emotions fluctuated between cautious hope and lingering fear, a reflection of the human complexity that accompanies long-delayed justice. As the judge called the court to order, the prosecution summarized the meticulous work that had led to Caldwell's arrest. They recounted the cold case's history, the original investigation, and the years of uncertainty, emphasizing the breakthrough moment when genealogical research revealed familial connections that had previously been inaccessible. The DNA match, verified repeatedly by independent laboratories, had provided the scientific linchpin for the case. Yet, beyond science, the prosecution underscored Caldwell's behavioral patterns, his careful observation of routines, strategic interactions with the community, and subtle manipulations that allowed him to remain undetected for over a decade. These psychological insights painted a chilling portrait of a man capable of hiding malevolent intent behind an ordinary facade, highlighting the intersection of human behavior and criminal investigation. Witnesses took the stand to describe Caldwell's interactions and the impact of his actions on the town. Former neighbors spoke of his seemingly normal daily routines, his polite demeanor, and the volunteer work he had undertaken. Some recalled minor incidents that, at the time, seemed insignificant: misplaced toy, a lingering glance, a question that felt slightly off, but which, in retrospect, fit the larger pattern of predatory behavior. Psychologists and behavioral experts testified about how offenders often rely on such small, seemingly innocuous actions to learn about potential victims and avoid suspicion. They explained that understanding these behaviors is critical for investigators, not only to solve existing cases, but also to prevent future harm by educating communities about subtle warning signs. In a particularly poignant moment, Ellen Thompson spoke from the witness stand. She described Clara's life in vivid detail, her laughter, curiosity, and dreams, and the profound emptiness felt in her absence. She recounted the years of unanswered questions, the sleepless nights, and the emotional toll of navigating daily life while grappling with uncertainty. Her testimony was both heart-wrenching and grounding, reminding the court that beyond the science, the genealogy, and the behavioral analysis, there was a human story at the center of the case. Martin Thompson added his voice, detailing the relentless pursuit of justice and the hope that, even after years of darkness, truth could ultimately prevail. Their courage in reliving these experiences underscored the resilience of families affected by long cold cases. The defense attempted to cast doubt on the evidence, questioning the reliability of genealogical methods and the interpretation of behavioral analysis. They suggested the possibility of coincidental DNA matches, emphasizing the time elapsed since Clara's disappearance and the potential for contamination or error. Psychologists provided counterpoints, explaining that while no method is infallible, the combination of multiple independent confirmations, precise statistical analysis, and observed behavioral patterns made the case exceptionally strong. The court was presented with a layered understanding of truth, blending tangible scientific evidence with expert interpretation of human actions and intentions. Community members listened intently as the trial revealed how Caldwell had constructed his life to conceal his crimes. His interactions were dissected, revealing a deliberate pattern of misdirection and careful social navigation. He had cultivated a network of superficial trust, attending local events, maintaining friendly conversations, and appearing engaged and responsible. Experts explained that this level of social camouflage is common among offenders who commit crimes over extended periods without detection. By understanding these patterns, the community and future investigators could better recognize warning signs, increasing vigilance and preventative awareness. The jury retired for deliberation, and the courthouse shifted into a tense, expectant quiet. Outside, conversations reflected the collective anxiety of the town, a mix of hope, dread, and reflection. People shared memories of Clara, recounted the impact of the cold case on their sense of safety, and debated the implications of the trial's outcome. Teachers, neighbors, and parents discussed vigilance, community responsibility, and the importance of observing subtle behaviors that could indicate danger. Psychologists commented in interviews about the phenomena of communal trauma in cases like these, explaining that collective processing and shared support are crucial to recovery. Lambertville, in many ways, had lived through the psychological ripple effects of one person's concealed criminal intent, and the trial was both a closure and a mirror reflecting the human capacity for resilience. Finally, after hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Caldwell's demeanor, once controlled and composed, shifted subtly as the foreperson announced the verdict: guilty on all counts related to Clara's abduction and associated offenses. The courtroom exhaled collectively. Ellen and Martin Thompson embraced, tears streaming down their faces, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and vindication. The weight of uncertainty that had shadowed their lives for 18 years began to lift, replaced by the understanding that justice, though delayed, had been achieved. Caldwell's expressions, tightly controlled for years, now betrayed a rare vulnerability, a psychological unraveling under the undeniable weight of accountability. Sentencing followed swiftly, and Caldwell received a term that reflected the severity and premeditation of his crimes. While the legal process could not restore the lost years of Clara's life, it represented an official acknowledgement of wrongdoing and an affirmation of the judicial system's capacity to pursue truth, even after decades. Psychologists emphasized the importance of legal resolution for families of long cold cases, noting that while closure is multifaceted and practical, the formal recognition of justice serves a critical function in the healing process. In the aftermath, Lambertville began a careful process of recovery. The Thompsons engaged in community outreach, speaking at schools and local events about safety, vigilance, and resilience. Public programs were established to educate children about personal boundaries and to help parents identify subtle signs of predatory behavior. The story of Clara, while tragic, became a vehicle for awareness and education, highlighting the intersection of human psychology, community engagement, and forensic science. Residents reported a renewed sense of connection, a collective determination to protect one another, and a cautious optimism grounded in lessons learned from the past. Caldwell's imprisonment marked a turning point in the town's perception of safety and trust. The psychological insights gained from the investigation and trial informed local policies and prevention strategies. Authorities collaborated with schools, recreational programs, and community groups to implement measures that minimized risk while fostering normal social interaction. Experts highlighted that the balance between vigilance and trust is delicate but achievable, emphasizing that communities can remain open, supportive, and safe when informed by both science and human behavioral understanding. Reflecting on the case, investigators noted the unique combination of tools and expertise that had led to resolution. Genealogical research had provided the crucial lead. DNA evidence confirmed identity, and behavioral analysis guided investigative focus. Each component had been essential, and the integration of science, psychology, and methodical detective work represented a model for future cold case resolutions. Professionals in the field cited this case as an example of the evolving capabilities of law enforcement and forensic investigation, demonstrating that even after years of silence, truth can surface with persistence, expertise, and innovative methods. For Clara's family, the resolution brought a complex tapestry of emotions: relief that the perpetrator was held accountable, sorrow for the years lost, and gratitude toward those who had worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. They emphasized the importance of remembrance, community support, and the pursuit of justice, urging other families enduring similar uncertainties to hold on to hope. Mental health professionals working with them highlighted the importance of continued counseling, community engagement, and narrative closure, explaining that processing long-term trauma involves layers of acknowledgement, reflection, and gradual emotional rebuilding. As Lambertville slowly returned to a sense of normalcy, the impact of the case endured. Parents remained vigilant, children learned new lessons about safety, and the story of Clara became a touchstone for discussions about community responsibility, psychological insight, and the transformative power of science in solving human mysteries. The intertwining of human behavior, investigative skill, and innovative techniques served as a testament to the resilience of individuals and communities in the face of profound tragedy. In the quiet moments, residents reflected on the fragile nature of trust, the importance of awareness, and the enduring truth that even after many years, accountability can be achieved and justice, while delayed, can still be realized. Lambertville's experience became a case study in both psychology and criminal investigation, illustrating the subtle, sometimes hidden mechanisms of human behavior that can allow crimes to remain undetected, and conversely, the ways that diligence, insight, and technological advances can ultimately expose truth. Families, law enforcement, and community members learned invaluable lessons: the vigilance of individuals, the support of a community, and the persistent application of scientific and psychological expertise can intersect to solve cases once thought permanently unsolvable. Clara's story, while tragic, became emblematic of the hope that even in the darkest shadows, human insight, perseverance, and compassion can illuminate truth, restore justice, and foster healing for those left behind.